10 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few running backs I would start this week. The first guy, Leonard Fournette of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Bucs coming off a bye week in Week 9, and now they got a good matchup here, Week 10 at the Washington football team. And Leonard Fournette, he's been great this season for fantasy football, and it's the last 3 games for him. Week 6 at Philly, 22 carries, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing, and he added 6 catches for 46 yards. Week 7 versus the Bears, 15 carries, 81 yards, a touchdown, and 2 catches for 9 yards. And Week 8, I know, was a down ball game for him at the Saints. 8 carries, 26 yards, 3 catches, and 17 rushing yards. But right here, Week 10, this Tampa Bay Buck team's coming off the bye. They're going to be more focused. They're going to be motivated as well, in my opinion. And I think Fournette in this ball game, 70 to 80 yards at least, and he's going to find the end zone. So he's definitely a running back I would start this week. The second running back is James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. So James Conner, it looks like he's going to be the man over there with a full workload over there in Arizona after we saw Chase Edmonds go down with a high ankle sprain in that Week 9 ball game at the San Francisco 49ers. And Conner, what a huge fantasy day it was for him. 40 fantasy points in PPR leagues, 21 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown as well. So Conner right now, he leads the league at running back with 10 total touchdowns on the season. And this guy, he's been more than a goal line guy when he's gotten the opportunity as well to have more than 5 to 8 carries a game. So right now with a full workload and a pretty good matchup in my opinion versus the Carolina Panthers, I think James Conner in this one, he could get to 100 total yards possibly and have a touchdown in this one. And he's definitely a running back I would start with Edmonds out this week. The next running back is Cordell Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons. So Cordell Patterson, what a signing it's been for the Falcons in the offseason. And he's been one of the best pickups in all of fantasy football this year. So the last few weeks here for Patterson, Week 7 in Miami, 14 carries, 60 yards, a touchdown, 2 catches for 1 yard. Week 8 versus the Panthers, 9 carries, 35 yards, 5 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. And Week 9 at the Saints, 9 carries, 10 yards, but he added 6 catches for 126 yards. So right here, he's an amazing dual threat out of the backfield. Then also a former wide receiver is Patterson, but he qualifies a receiver and running back, obviously, in fantasy football. And last week, we saw the Denver Bronco running game shred the Dallas Cowboys. And we also saw that receivers like Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy have good games as well. So I think in this one, Cordell Patterson once again will have a double-digit fantasy day. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him get anywhere from 15 to 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues versus the Dallas Cowboys. And right now, Mike Davis is just not a factor in that backfield, in my opinion. So definitely go out there and start Patterson this week. The next running back I would start is Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos. So Melvin Gordon, a lot of people thought it was going to be a lot of Javonte Williams towards the middle of the season here before the season started. But Melvin Gordon, he's been playing good football, especially the last few weeks here in Cleveland. 8 carries, 18 yards, 2 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown. Week 8 versus the Washington football team, 10 carries, 47 yards, a rushing touchdown, 3 catches, a touchdown, and a fumble loss. And last week at the Dallas Cowboys, he had a full workload, 21 carries, 80 yards, a touchdown, and 2 catches for 15 yards. So right here, Melvin Gordon's getting the job done. They got confidence in him over there in Denver. In my opinion, their best offense is running the football with these 2 good running backs in Williams and Gordon. And this week, what a slam dunk matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles that give up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. I definitely would start Gordon this week. And the 5th and final running back I would start Darrell Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Darrell Williams, a lot of people thought Gore was going to eat into his workload, but that wasn't the case in Week 9 versus the Packers. 19 carries, 70 yards, and 3 catches for 7 yards. So a pretty tough matchup it was in that ball game. But Week 10, I like the matchup a lot at the Vegas Raiders, where we just saw Devontae Booker have a huge ball game versus the Raider team in Week 9. So right here, Raiders give up the 13th most fantasy points to running backs. The Chiefs, I think they got to go back to basics, and that's what they tried doing in that ball game with Green Bay. Run a lot of strong runs up the middle and to the right side of the field because their offense just hasn't been the same. And it's still a work in progress, but Darrell Williams is a dual threat, obviously out of the backfield. catching the football and running, so he's definitely a running back I would start this week because we don't know anything about Clyde Edwards-Helaire and when he's going to come back at all. So that's a few running backs I would start in Week 10 of the fantasy football season.